Specificity. Training.
For teachers, getting feedback on lessons can be difficult.
The pupil voice is a massive player in today's teaching and learning environment.
And the pupil panel approach is designed to help teachers hear genuine student voices. At Ripon College in North Yorkshire, a class of A-level students is going to assess their teacher's performance.
I used to bowl that much, that it got to a stage mentally that I'd forgot how to let go of the ball.
And express what they really feel about the style and content of one lesson.
Looking forward to giving my views on how to improve teaching, really. It's good to get the students' view across.
Up front, the class gives an immediate judgment on the lesson.
Did you enjoy the lesson?
Then the pupil panel meet behind closed doors to record their uncensored thoughts.
Do you think this lesson was well planned?
A lot of the time, we're just working straight from a textbook, aren't we? Like, do these notes, do those notes, and it's bound to end up in everyone messing around because it's boring.
Later, PE teacher Jodie Robson gets to hear everything the pupils say.
You know, expected us to know what the principles of training were. He didn't introduce it to us, so we sat down looking a bit blank. He said people may know it from GCSE. Well, we haven't done GCSE sports, half of us, so.
He can take on board their comments.
I think it's been probably a useful exercise in some aspects, but I think some of it is quite unjust.
It should be interesting.
Okay, I'm Jodie Robson. I've been teaching for 4.5 years here at Ripon College. I've got promoted to Assistant Head of Physical Education and also to Lead Form Tutor for Year 9, which is in effect a Head of Year's job for the whole of Year 9. The class that I've got are an A2 class, which is a Year 13 class. I've had them for 2 years now at A level. I'm expecting a few harsh comments from them. They've put up with me telling them how it is for so long. It's a little bit of fun. Obviously a little bit of exposure for the kids to see that their views can be taken on board. It's about giving the pupils the opportunity to have a look at being a little teacher, in a word, being an inspector. The pupils might think that it was a different type of lesson that the teacher did. So I'm quite looking forward to it, and I feel that it could benefit my teaching and learning and how that impacts on the next lessons with them.
With only 6 in the class, everyone gets to be on the panel.
Looking forward to giving my views on how to improve teaching, really. It's good to get the students' view across.
We've got a few jokers in the class, so it could go either way. But I think they're going to be serious and tell Mr. Robson where he could and could not improve.
It gives him feedback as well, where he's going wrong and what he's doing right and how he can develop his lessons.
I do believe he's a good teacher and his teaching methods are very positive.
He's quite unorthodox, but he's good. You have a laugh with him as well as learning stuff.
He brings in the practical aspects into the classroom, so whether we're out on the field playing sport or whether we're inside, it's all sort of practical based.
You have got to relate the theory to practical implications so that the pupils then can understand it. I try to inspire them by allowing them to see what's in it for them, allowing them to be more responsible for their own learning than perhaps there might be in other subjects. Today, this afternoon, what we're going to look at is identify and explain the 6 principles of training.
Jodie's chosen the lesson for the pupil panel. There's less work from textbooks than usual.
I'm going to try and get you to give some practical examples of later on. Does that make sense? We can overload the body with one of 3 ways. For example, when I used to be younger, some of you might not believe that, I used to be a bowler at cricket. 3, 4. You've got to devise a simple training programme, then you're going to teach your principle to the other 4. You're going to have specificity.
If you had 3.
15 seconds is like too much time.
How you're applying specificity.
10 seconds.
Remember that we're not an idealist situation in here to do football, are we? Yeah, we're just doing a classroom activity-based experiment.
That passes it on.
In terms of specificity, was that drill specific to netball? It's over to you guys now. Pupil panel, do your worst. I thought that was quite a good lesson. Interesting to what they have to say now. They're normally very critical of the my teaching styles, but I was quite happy with it.
Now Nat takes over to see if the class vote will show Jodie the red card.
We'll have a red card for a bad or no, a green card for a good or yes. Right, so, first of all, did you enjoy the lesson? Cards up.
Most of the class enjoyed the lesson.
Did we all understand the lesson then? Vote now.
And everyone understood it. This could be testing for Jodie, but he won't know the result of the ballot until later. In the jury room, the discussion kicks off, on camera.
This lesson was more serious.
Yeah.
The way he set it out as well was pretty effective, like asking us the questions.
Timed it well, everything. We weren't sat around for a long time.
A couple of days later, Jodie settles down to watch the panel's verdict.
Do we ever bored at any point in the lesson? Adam?
I wasn't bored at all, which is just quite a difference for me, because he usually bores me.
We must use both progression and moderation. However, we must try to avoid that famous word of yours, Adam, boredom. Therefore, we need a variety of training to take place.
This particular lesson was brilliant. It involved all sorts of different learning techniques, I thought, and encompassed a number of different styles of learning.
Right, well, 5 press-ups. What have we done to press-ups? I've overloaded it.
Right, was there any one particular moment where you thought it was really interesting?
No.
Today, this afternoon, what we're going to look at is identify and explain the 6 principles of training.
When we first came to the lesson, he expected us to know what the principles of training were.
2 to go, we're doing quite well.
He didn't introduce it to us, so we sat down looking a bit blank and expected, like he said, people may know it from GCSE. Well, we haven't done GCSE sports, half of us, so it was a bit hard to acknowledge what he was on about.
A bit of background knowledge maybe would have been nice.
Yeah.
Do that yourself, Nat.
Ali, you gave a red card on enjoyment. What was that all about?
I gave him a red card because when we were doing the examples of practices, he criticised us quite a bit, which I thought was unfair.
So that's going to be practice number 2. Is that correct?
Well, not really. This is the second practice.
Well, of course it is. That must be drill number 2 if you increase the distance.
Drill number 2.
It's not difficult, Ali.
No, I know, but that was just one practice. And
Yeah, but you've progressed it. That's what progression is.
I thought it was good, but I have to agree with Ali that he was a little harsh on our... when he ripped into our drills. I thought they were quite good.
That's because they were rubbish.
Obviously, he didn't.
Did you understand the lesson?
For a change, yeah. It was fairly simple.
This was a well-planned lesson, whereas the other lessons is sort of a bit
Spontaneous.
more spontaneous. Yeah, well, spontaneous is maybe putting it nicely.
But this lesson was more serious. He sort of messes around sometimes, and then, well, we take advantage really.
I mean, certainly his laid-back style has helped me learn better than it would maybe with another teacher that's really strict and...
No, because I relax too much and then don't do any of the work.
You don't do any anyway, Will.
These lessons have quite a social factor to them. This one was pretty social. He knows us all pretty well. Jokes about a bit. Would you say that's a good thing or a bad thing?
So we joke and he's not in one of his jokey moods. He gets a bit angry. Whereas if he's in a jokey mood and we aren't, then we'll just get more jip for it, for not being in a sociable mood.
If he's not in the mood, we're not in the mood, then it's not going to work, and it just doesn't create the right atmosphere.
I think that happens sometimes on a Monday morning.
We've got to bear in mind the smallness of our group on that thing, though, I mean, he knows us all really well, because there's only 6 of us in the class. So that maybe affects his teaching style. Maybe do it a bit differently if he had a class full of like 30 people.
I used to open the bowling for Yorkshire. Same for badminton and hockey and swimming and football.
And you went to Bath University.
And I did go to Bath University.
Yeah, he does have really good knowledge and everything, but he relies too much on the textbook, and our homework is basically read pages, so-and-so, and make notes on pages. So it's not broadening horizons.
We sometimes don't know if he's expecting us to make notes on what we're saying, on what he's reading, or whether we're just meant to be taking it in, and sometimes you just don't know what to make of how he's trying to
Study skills,
get his message across when he's learning, teaching even.
How would you teach this lesson? What would you do differently?
I'd use practical examples, which he did, which was really effective, and also just have like a discussion and any questions.
I think I maybe would have had a drill set up already for when everyone got into the lesson, and then do the drills so everyone's thinking about practical sports, and then bring in the principles of training into the into the practical example they've already shown.
And you could constantly relate it back to that drill that you've done in the first place, yeah.
Good idea.
They're quite good. Always in PowerPoint
rushes through,
presentations, at the end he just skips through it really. He doesn't really go over them in as much detail as he did at the start of the presentation.
To an extent, he maybe treats us as adults in that way that he maybe expects us to know that sort of thing with moderation and variance. It maybe explains itself.
Good answer, John.
I think that Mr. Robson is a pretty sound teacher. Would you all agree?
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
I think there's a little bit of confusion, but certainly some interesting points for me to try and probably encompass to clarify some errors. I feel that perhaps, yes, the textbook is used probably in every lesson just about, but I think that the pupils need to be aware of how to use it properly and how I'm using it. But I don't think that I use it as much as the pupils think. You're very smart, Nat. You look like Where's Wally now? I think in terms of the banter comment that was made, I think that it's me that's a professional at the end of the day, not them. And I know where I am with it, but sometimes they don't know where that line is. So, yeah, valid point, and I will try and take that one on board. The main thing for me is that I need to look probably at how I track the progress being made in a more detailed fashion. So I think that that's an important issue that I think I could probably look to improve upon. Does that make sense? Yeah? And yeah, fair comment that I assume prior knowledge, but it's expected that at A-level that they're choosing to be in the group rather than they have to be there, so they'll do some background reading into the subject.
A week later, Jody sees the class again, as both form tutor and teacher, and tries out his new ideas.
So I'm hopefully going to use some of the things that you gave me as comments about my teaching from the last lesson. Yeah. So, first of all, you've got 3 minutes to prepare. I want you to read the section on DOMS in your book, which is on page 286. I want you then to create one question each to ask to somebody else. Alison, you're going to ask Craig your question. Craig, you're going to ask Nat your question. Nat, you're going to ask Alison your question. Yeah, so I'm just checking that you've done some prior knowledge so that we can discuss the topic. What I've also got is something for you to do so you can keep a track of it. Now, what I've done is I've gone through, and this is continuous homework and part of revision. I've also devised some mock questions for each individual pupil. They'll cover them each week so that I know that they're on board with what I'm doing. That gives me a better insight, really, into what they know, so I can gauge my teaching to impact on learning itself. I can give feedback more thoroughly to the pupils of where they are, where they need to be to achieve their target grades and how they're actually going to get to that target grade now. So I'm improving my tracking systems throughout the A-level course. OK, time up. Right, quick question.
Okay, now, when does DOMS
No,
start?
I won't go out with you, Eileen.
Nat, she has more taste.
When does DOMS occur?
24 to 48 hours afterwards.
Overall, I think the pupil panel experience has been a fantastic one for myself as a professional. I've gained a pupil's insight into what they want to be taught. I've a pupil's insight into learning itself, and I think that it'd be a thoroughly enjoyable experience for anyone to try that in future.